Hey there, fellow Outcasters. It's your ABTV after show for Outcast. It's season 1, episode 2, I Remember When She Loved Me, which means, yeah, we're still talking demonic possession, but this time we're talking possession with a little sprinkle of fire and brimstone and no small amount of feelings. It's all right here on ABTV, so stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Because the first thing I wanted to do was cry.
More like let the tears begin.
Oh, it is. This was the only song I could think of with this in the title, so I'm glad that one of you threw it out because my emotional state was too stable. I was feeling not overcome enough, and now we're gonna move on before I openly start weeping on camera. It's gonna happen because the little cowboy doll lost her purse. Lex Michael. Hi, I'm here now. All over social media at the Lex Michael, and I am here with
Joelle Monique, and you can find me everywhere at Joelle Monique.
And I am Abby Vega, and you can find me at _Abby Vega.
And of course, as always, follow us, like us, subscribe to our feed, rate us 5 stars. We're watching the live chat. I believe our hashtag is ABTV Outcast.
Yes.
Yes, it is hashtag ABTV Outcast. So please join in the conversation. We're going to be watching the chat during our entire discussion. So, hi, guys.
Hey.
I was not here last week. I was very ill. It wasn't fun. So I missed talking about the pilot with you guys. So I guess my first question, as a way to bring myself up to speed, this is the second episode, obviously, of this new series. How did it compare for you guys to the pilot episode?
Much better.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot more.
And I liked the pilot. I don't want to diss the pilot. The pilot was good. It was a strong introduction to this world, and we needed it. But woo! I like getting into the backgrounds. We veered away from the comics. If you're a comic book fan, we've got new information, which is really cool. Out of order, some things, which we'll talk a little bit about. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I liked the pilot a lot too, but like she said, I like diving in deeper into the characters and kind of what got them there, and you see some good flashbacks in this episode. So I like it better than I liked the pilot, but I did like the pilot as well.
It's interesting. Okay, so I'm not a reader of the comics, and are both of you, or?
I'm not.
Okay,
No,
Abby, you're
I
not.
just am. I actually brought in my issue 2 today, which we don't zoom here, but you could check it out, which is actually, instead of called I Remember When She Left Me, it's From the Shadows It Watches. I have the whole collection as it stands today. I am a super, super huge fan of the comics. So, yeah.
Okay, see, and I came to it fresh. I was aware of the comics, but I have not been keeping up with them. So the pilot I really, really dug because obviously I didn't have the experience of, I've seen this already, scene for scene, shot for shot. I was really into it as a movie geek because the pilot was directed by Adam Wingard, and I don't know if you guys talked at all about Adam Wingard's body work. So Adam Wingard is the guy who made You're Next, and he also made a movie called The Guest, which I absolutely adore. So I thought that from a directorial standpoint, the pilot was very, very cool. But I agree, I really like now in the second episode really digging a lot deeper into the characters as opposed to, as fun as it was, little boy's possessed, I'm gonna punch him in the face, oh, he's still coming, I'm gonna punch him harder. I think we're fine now, which is great. But yeah, so because it is such a character heavy episode, it's not crazy plot driven, I felt like maybe the best, most constructive way to go about breaking this episode down would be to talk about the individual character journeys. And obviously I think the clear jumping off point would be Kyle, because you learn quite a bit that gives context to Kyle's state that expounds upon what we learned in the pilot. Some stuff that I thought was really interesting, specifically as applies to his relationship with his mother. Yeah. And so I wanted to talk about that, and then also because Joelle, you referenced some departures from the comics. I want to know, does it start here? What's the depiction of this relationship that we see on the show versus how it's depicted in the books?
Yeah, you want to start with the mother-son relationship?
Yeah.
Okay, so, we get flashbacks in the comics, but we get negative flashbacks only.
Okay.
So we see all the kitchen scenes very much the same, shot the same, as they are originally depicted by, sorry for the artist, Azzaceta? Who's a great artist. If you haven't checked out his work, you definitely want to. But we don't get the happy flashbacks.
Okay.
We don't get these sunshiny moments of who's mother. He talks about it in the comic, but you don't see them. And I was so excited to watch that just shift from loving, like, devoted mother to crazed woman smearing mud all over her face, which was really... it helps you understand a lot more what Kyle had to go through as a kid, because it wasn't crazy 100% of the time. It was out of the blue and completely unexpected, and this poor kid is left on his own to deal with it. And I thought that was a really great addition from the comics.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that they show their relationship before this happened, because otherwise it would be harder to kind of be with Kyle when he is showing all this emotion and kind of guilt later in the episode. You wouldn't understand it as well if you didn't see that there was a good, loving relationship there before all this craziness happened.
Yeah, absolutely. You really get a sense of loss, and I think that's important, especially when I mean, I think this show so far has made a pretty clear argument that evil, capital E evil, is real. This is not necessarily just a metaphor or an analogy or allegory for different types of domestic problems that actually exist. Having said that, it's so fascinating to watch specifically the moment where she's outside and you see that possession take hold and she starts going for the mud and she starts like smearing the mud all over herself, and you get this clear line of demarcation between, okay, this is everything that came before and this is everything that's going to come after. Not only do you really get a palpable sense of the loss that Kyle experienced, but then you also see, it gives more context to this is a portrait of a really bad domestic situation that, minus the weird flying goo monster that smashes him around, unfortunately there are a lot of scenes like this that happen in homes all across the country for one reason or another. And I thought it was a very interesting way to show that, yes, this is a person who was a great person, a great mother with a real, true, loving bond with her son that was overcome by whether it's demons or whether it's your own negative.
And we have
nature.
that really nice comparison in episode 1 where Kyle runs into the church ladies in the grocery store, and his sister kind of comes up afterwards like, "Are they kidding me? They think this is a demon that possessed your mother. She's ill. She's sick. I need to get help. She needed the help, and there was something you could do." To like, well, maybe there are outside forces at work, and it isn't that she's just sick. It's something has possessed her and it's driven like. And I imagine that must be really hard for Kyle, who had to grow up with this woman who's like, you can't possibly understand the shift, the complete 180 turn from loving, devoted mother to complete psycho. It works. I like that because it sets up an idea, like a real world conversation of God and demons and hell, and I think that's very important to the dynamics of the show.
Yes, and it also, and you phrased it perfectly, it also makes it's not a perfect metaphor because you get the weird flying goo monster, but it also makes it at least partway to an effective metaphor for a lot of mental illness. You have this switch, and unless you see both sides of the person, you're only going to see the quote unquote the demonic, the negative, the worst possible traits that person exemplifies, whereas I think it was an interesting choice to show those really positive moments because, guys, Kyle's life is really awful.
Yes.
Can we, really quickly, I just want to pause. It's bad because not only was it his mother, but he grows up and then it basically happens again.
Oh, it happens verbatim again.
And can I also ask the question, why does he torture himself and live in that house still? Is that something that comes up in the comic? Because I am so confused to why he would stay in that house.
I think there's a lot of subtext that reflects back to that of needing to come home and understand what happened to you. Like, if this is just going to follow me around, if I can't escape it, I might as well go back to the source and not let it affect anyone else. Like, it's here already, so I can't spread it any further. And there's nobody here who loves it. He tries so hard to keep his sister at arm's length so she can't be the next one. He works really hard, I think, to isolate himself in this place where he feels responsible, which we learned this episode, that he feels responsible for what happened to his mother. I think it's a way of condemning himself and giving himself the punishment that he needs and also protecting everyone that he loves.
Especially because, and I'm not able to spoil anything because I haven't read the books, but you get an inkling. I mean, not only clearly this stuff keeps happening around him, specifically to people around him, but I'm watching this show, especially in the second episode, listening very specifically to everything everyone is saying, going, Oh, homegirl's possessed, isn't she? Oh, she's a demon. That's why you don't like Kyle. It's because you're a demon person.
Yeah.
And so I'm going like, if that turns out to be true, then obviously this weird evil demonic force specifically doesn't like him. If that's the case, and if I'm Kyle and I think evil tentacle mass monster doesn't like me, I probably go sit in the sad house by myself and try to get away from everybody else as well.
Wait, I have to ask, as somebody who has read the books and going a little bit further in, who was like, you know, making your light bulb go off? Who were you guys looking at? Like, you must be a demon, or you must be like
the guy in that hat.
The man in the black hat, of course.
Obviously.
Of course, the man in the black hat.
I noticed him creeping in the church.
Oh, okay.
What's
We're
he
talking
doing?
about so let's. I want to jump back in a minute to talk about Kyle and his mom. But yeah, since you brought it up, homeboy is creepy.
Homeboy is made
First of all,
creepy.
really but okay, so I was going to answer your question by saying any character actor that I recognize from something else, I'm pretty sure is evil.
You used the cinema cheat.
Case in point, Brent Spiner, as I believe the character is named Sydney.
Yeah.
Although he is not named in this episode. I had to look this up. But he is apparently not pseudo, maybe spoil. He's not a nice person.
Wait, which character are we talking about?
The creepy guy from the church who shows up at the very end.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that he's a bad person.
Yeah, and he's apparently going to continue to be a bad person, and that one's almost a gimme because Brent Spiner, most people know as Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation. You don't hire a Brent Spiner to do a one-off like hello and then leave.
Well, and his speech at the end, like, if you weren't sure before, if you were uncertain, that put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that was 100% verifying.
Well, and that was the conversation too that made it seem very much like, oh, okay, so they don't like him specifically.
Yeah,
exactly. Got it. All right. But it wasn't just Brent Spiner. It was I believe her name is Mildred, the older woman from the church. Another Grace Zabriskie, another wonderful character actress who I know as Mrs. Palmer from Twin Peaks. Not just her though. Also. What is the actress's name? It escapes me. But this possible love interest for the Reverend.
The Reverend, yeah. Well, I don't know her name.
I don't think it's a coincidence or an accident that she offers him pie and he jokingly refers to her as Temptress. I think she's evil. I think she's evil. I don't know. Maybe she's just a really nice lady with pies who likes the Reverend. But on a show like this, where capital E evil exists,
it's a little sketchy.
My guess is that's an evil pie.
Yeah. The presentation of it, if nothing else, of like, look at this beautiful pie and like this temptress and all of the religious like connotations that we've already fully laid out. It definitely seems like she's not going to be a positive influence, let's say, on the Reverend.
Patricia is that character's name, and the actress is Melinda McGraw, who played Scully's sister on the X-Files. But anyway.
She died and it was sad, and she did a great job.
Yes.
Spoilers if those of you not caught up on that.
For over a decade old.
20-year-old spoilers.
Yeah. But that's now going forward. Anytime I see a character actor who's not billed in the opening credits that I recognize from anything, I'm gonna go, oh no, they're evil. They're evil.
Demon possessed.
That's what the call sheet says. It's like Brent Spiner, guy who is just leaking evil from every pore.
True.
So. Okay, so they don't like Kyle. Kyle's life is rough. It's real not great. And the universe just seems to keep doubling down on making Kyle's life more sad. If not objectively, powerfully worse in the moment, certainly more sad. My goodness, the scene where he tries to perform the exorcism on his mother.
Heartbreaking.
Another departure, I want to say, from issue 2 of the comic, as far as like going in order. We don't get that moment. And it was hard. Just the Reverend trying to be like, this isn't going to work. Even before we get to the exorcism, just him taking his mother home. Which is like, she's old and feeble, and he's, hesitating to carry her across the threshold back into this kind of hell house that they lived in together. And then when he's trying to feed her and she can't swallow right, and it's clear that this is going to be way more than he's capable of taking care of. And then you get to the exorcism part, which is the last-ditch effort of like, I can make her better and I can undo things that aren't even my fault.
Yeah.
But I can make it right, and it's just... The blood and then her choking on it, I was kind of done.
Yeah, that's one thing that I really, really liked about this episode is, like I said, is that's why it was important that they had those positive flashbacks, because in this episode you see so much of why he is how he is with her.
Yeah.
And it's so sad how he feels guilty for, like you said, it's not his control. It wasn't him, but it was really sad. And in the show too, I love the Reverend for going with, he tried, even though he knew it wasn't going to work, he gave him that
He was
little...
with him. He was like, okay, we can try, buddy. Like,
yeah, that kind of shows, like, they're in this together right now.
Oh, yeah.
So I like how they showed
the Reverend,
that. Yeah.
for sure, because otherwise he's going to fly straight off the handle.
It is, though. It is so sad. It's like you say, like, yes, Reverend Anderson's there, but his argument the whole time is you can't do anything further. The demon is already gone, but this is what's maybe the demon took something when it left. This is it, buddy. You can't. You're gonna keep. Oh, you poor idiot. Okay.
We got to that kid after like a week from the first episode. Your mother was possessed, which it seems like years that went on, and so the toll it must have taken on her physically and mentally. And again, man in the black hat at the end who says, you fought so hard. It's just. My heart.
I know.
My heart.
Oh.
And can we all agree that Kyle has way too much of a hero complex? Like he's like. Yeah, I'm not gonna let my wife take the fall. I take full responsibility for bringing a demon to her, so I will be ostracized. And I'm gonna try to save a mother who did nothing but beat me, even if it wasn't technically her fault, even if she was a victim. I can still help her, and I'll keep everyone away, and I'll just be lonely and sad for the rest of my life. Like, Kyle, like, you deserve some happiness. Like, see a therapist.
Or can we get some, like, romance in his life? Something.
Kyle's ready for a relationship
Right?
emotionally.
Because you know the first time he goes out on a date again, she gets possessed.
Yeah.
There's
And, like,
no way that doesn't happen. Like, destroys the Fridays they're at. Like, there's no way that doesn't. But
I definitely have a Fridays.
I agree with you. He definitely has a hero complex, but I do appreciate that at least so far, and it's it's early yet, but so far the story, the show itself is not rewarding him for that hero complex. If anything, it does keep doubling down on, buddy, this isn't helping. And
kicking him right in the keister.
Watching him try so desperately to help his mother in the exorcism scene, eventually resorting to, well, the little boy drank my blood here. No, I punched the little boy in the face and
his blood out into his mom's mouth.
That choking sound. I was just like, you're hurting yourself.
For a second, I thought it might work or
because
something.
he kind of chokes on it as it comes up.
And I was like, is something gonna, like, the slimy thing gonna come out of her again? But then I realized it was just not gonna happen.
it's just so sad.
It really is.
I'm just thinking about, like, my God, this poor guy and his terrible life.
Yeah, he really has an awful dark life.
This is true.
And there's it's like the one bright spot in his existence. And I'd say, like, it's not like he doesn't have friends. The Reverend's his buddy, but
for now.
right?
For how long?
For now, and I don't think there's a whole lot of emotional nourishment to be found in that relationship. The closest thing to a bright spot in his life is his sister at this point, who does finally try and do him a bit of a solid as he tries to get this present to his little girl, who he had to save when his wife also became possessed because his life is horrible.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting, really interesting, that we see these flashbacks in the first episode with his wife, whose name is Allison?
Allison, yes.
Thank you. And she's very clearly having a rough go of it with the demons and whatnot. But we see her now, and she seems A-okay.
Yeah. That's why I also want to call attention to the way that Kyle kind of doesn't understand how is Joshua okay, and my mom's like this, and then his wife's like this. So, I mean, that's kind of a reasonable thing for him to be frustrated about, because I'm kind of thinking that, like, what makes one person, you said obviously the time could be an issue, but what makes one person able to come out of this pretty much scotch-free? She has her daughter, she has her life going again, and then his mom can't even do anything. So it's kind of a valid point that he's confused by that.
Yeah, and I can definitely understand, like, if you saw two the greatest loves of your life, your mother, the one who brought you into the world, and then the woman you chose to marry, both do that 180, of course you lock yourself away. You're like, I am the issue here.
Yeah.
But we can clearly see that, like, the Reverend and his sister are having a positive influence from the filth of that house in episode 1 to episode 2, where, like, you know, the hallway's kind of cleaned up. You can walk around in it, and I don't believe we saw any dishes in the sink, which was a very big issue in episode 1.
By the end, he puts on jeans.
Right?
Yes.
Pants, full pants.
We're turning a corner.
He's making it happen. So hopefully we get Kyle into, like, a happier, healthier, like, state
Kyle's
of
coming
mind.
back.
Oh man, but of course he puts on the jeans and it's a slippery slope because he's just opening the door to further disaster. That's every morning. I'm just like, why do I put? I'm not going to take these sweatpants off. I'm just inviting the demons to come after me at that point. But we do see at the end of the episode, to circle back around, this chilling scene with Brent Spiner's unnamed but clearly very nasty character, talking to Kyle's catatonic mother, and you see what I took to be proof positive that whatever else is going on, she's still very much in there.
Yeah, she knows that she can, like, hear everything. Or
Which, when you go back and replay Kyle's conversations with her, it's heartbreaking. Especially given the information we get in that scene of, like, she fought hard, she didn't want any of this, she saved him. It looks like in the final moments when she can't physically move, but her eyes are conscious and she's staring and that thing lets him go. And then she kind of disappears within her body. So it's clear that she was able to do so much, like enough to at least let him live. And then to hear, like, I hated you and you tortured me and I don't love you. Just poor. And to be able to do nothing but sit there and take it and not be able to justify or explain the situation. Yeah, Kyle's got a rough life, but his mother might take the cake in this episode.
I think there's definitely an argument to be made for the fact that she could possibly have it worse. At least he can walk around, I guess. So there's
I don't know.
He's got mobility. He's standing upright. So, you know, yeah, he's got control over his life. I think the control is what's making it better.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Is it control or is it the illusion of control?
I don't know if he really has control over his life at this point.
But he did put on the jeans.
He did. He had control to get dressed in the morning.
And he gave his daughter a present, which again was nice, and he got confirmation from his sister. His sister left a little note on the wrapping paper in his door that she really loved her present. And
so cute.
He was so happy.
He smiled. So
happy. That's why I want that relationship to be on the men's, because I had never seen him so happy. He was.
Here's my fear. My fear, and I don't know, of course, because I haven't read the books, and this isn't even a prediction. My fear is the second anything good happens, something 3 or 4 times as bad will happen. This is based on a Robert Kirkman comic, and I watched The Walking Dead. Nobody's very happy for very long.
I've never watched The Walking Dead, so I feel like it's gonna be rough for me watching this show.
Oh man, prepare yourself to fall in love with the character and have them stabbed in the eye, several legs removed.
I'm gonna be on edge at all times.
It's the smartest place to be.
I think Robert Kirkman is so good at what he does, and part of what he does is everyone's life is very sad.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, and the human condition, you know, I feel like he puts really tough people in very difficult situations.
Yes.
Situations where you would be questioning yourself of, like, I have, like, again, not just the zombie apocalypse, but now I am Rick and the leader of a group of survivors.
Right.
And I can trust no one because that's been clearly dictated to me several times. So now I have to become a killer and a leader, but somehow still be a father. And it's a human condition. And so far, I mean, we're only 2 episodes in, but so far we see a guy who clearly loves, like, endlessly enough to, like, ostracize himself from an entire community that hates him, that he still has to walk through daily. I know that he's going to be tested a lot more, but I'm hoping that, like Rick, we come to be like, you did what you had to do. Like,
sure.
There were 0 other options, and we support you.
Sure.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and I do think it does, especially you watch these first 2 episodes, it puts such an interesting spin on the idea of an exorcism story, because a lot of the pilot, especially when you get into the 3rd act of that pilot where the boy's just flying around the room and they're beating on him, a lot of it has certainly on the surface so much in common with a lot of big popular exorcism stories. But most of those stories tend to be, not only do they tend to be one and done, but they almost don't consider the problem beyond the immediate, oh, we got the demon out of this one girl, let's all go home.
We did
Yeah.
it.
When in fact, if you believe in evil as a concept and you believe in possession as a concept, I would think the next logical step is we better figure out where the demon's going,
Yeah.
because they tend not to bail and go home.
Die. We can't banish them to hell, so they've just taken over somebody else. And I like that it's centered in a small town. Like Virginia in the comics plays a huge role in the setting and the scenery. And we get a little bit of, because you only have 22 pages in a comic, so you get a little bit of the townspeople. And I think that one of the major changes we're going to see in the show is that we're going to get a lot more community feeling.
Sure.
Which is great if you're into, like old witchy kind of tales. Like
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get like witch hunty feelings for Kyle later from the townspeople, and he has to try to prove himself. Like I like that we're getting, these old ladies who are trying to, they're not old. These women who are trying to like seduce the preacher, the Reverend, and like get on his good side. Like I like these little town aspects, and what Kirkman does so well is he creates great communities.
Yes.
So I'm very excited to see.
And then often destroys them horribly.
Yeah, but that's fun.
But it's true, and I agree completely, and that's something else that I think so far certainly sets this story apart from a lot of other demonic possession stories, is that the victims of demonic possession and the people around them typically have the strong personal connection. But in a lot of these stories, the people coming in to fight the evil typically don't have such a strong, immediate personal connection. It's typically, you've got, in The Exorcist is a perfect, obviously the most obvious example, because the climax of The Exorcist and the climax of the pilot are so similar. You've got your older priest and your younger priest, and they both sure don't like the devil, but they're not particularly attached to the little girl that this demon is inhabiting, whereas Kyle has a direct personal connection to almost everybody that we know of that's gotten possessed so far.
Well, the other thing is Kyle isn't a preacher. Like, he's not a religious
Yeah.
person. It doesn't seem, and it's certainly not in the show at this point, and definitely not in the comics. And it's a struggle of like, I don't believe in what I'm seeing and doing, and yet I have no other tools in which to handle what is happening to me. So I really like that dichotomy of like a preacher who's super devout and like a man of the people who's like, I can save this community, I can uplift it, and I can help Kyle get through this horrible first half of his life and maybe lead him into some good, versus Kyle who's like, there is no God, there is no hell, everything is terrible, but maybe I can do something about it. Maybe me personally can fix this issue that I have caused. And I really like the two of them working together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think putting the two of them together in a partnership is a really great way to get both elements. And I want to talk about Reverend Anderson now, because there's a lot going on with him that I'm trying to track. I don't think in this episode you get quite as much concrete personal backstory information that makes his motivation entirely clear in a new way. But you get, so first time you see him, right? Homeboy's preaching to his congregation.
He's preaching hard.
And like he's going for it
He's
too.
doing good Southern Baptist minister on
he
him.
is going hard on them.
Like in a way where you'd be forgiven if you didn't know what show you were watching. You'd be forgiven for going, buddy, just breathe, just take a breath. Just down, and not like 7 or 8 notches. And you could also forgive some of the townspeople, some of whom I'm pretty sure possessed. But you could forgive some of the townspeople for going, I don't, like, what's happening
This
here?
is
Yeah.
extreme, man.
But of course, we know that he's right, and he knows that he's right. And so his inability to rile people up a little bit more than he's able to, I found, let's say, a little frustrating.
I don't know if I felt frustrated because, if I was in that town, I'd be like, Reverend,
Yeah,
this
I'd be
is
the
a
same
little
way.
Old Testament-y for me, hellfire and brimstone. So what I'm more interested in is the townspeople coming to terms with this, because it seems like a sprinkle here and there are like, oh no, his mother was possessed. And now that we know Kyle's history, they're unsure. They're like, but he beat his daughter, and now this kid is like bloodied to a pulp, and our Reverend is defending him. I feel like they're going to have a lot more questions than just, what is your sermon about? And more like, what are you, like, who, the old lady questions him, too. Like, is he one of your followers? Is he part of your army? And for him to just stand up and just be like, yeah, he is. All the Christians in that room spilled blood. It was terrible, and had you been there, you might know something about it. I like that he sticks so hard to his his convictions, and supports Kyle 110%. Like, there's no like flailing in there, I don't know if that's going to work on, like, if that'll alienate the people or if that'll endear them to him.
Yeah, I like how he sticks to it too. And I'm really curious to, at this point, I can't guess who it would be, but if there's going to be someone who, you know, fully jumps on board soon. Because right now it's pretty much just him and Kyle. And everyone else is at least somewhat skeptical or very, very skeptical.
It does kind of feel like there's a third missing. Like,
yeah, I feel like there
needs
needs to be someone else who kind of hops on board with them. But I don't know who that might be. Maybe Chief?
The Chief is super interesting because Chief seems to, without talking about it explicitly, seems very aware that there is stuff. He's got the line specifically where Mark, the brother-in-law, is talking to him about Reverend Anderson, and the Chief says that line where he's saying, you know, his fire and brimstone protects this community in ways that our badges and guns can't.
Yeah.
So he knows something's going on. I fear for his life, though.
Yeah.
Specifically because of that.
I mean, and talk about great character actors of Reggie Caffey.
Yes.
He's amazing, and I was so excited when they cast him. I was like, this is gonna be good. Like, he knows exactly what to do, and he's got such a great face, like, for mystery, and you're always looking at him like, what do you know? What secrets are you holding?
I spent the entirety of House of Cards watching the barbecue chef thinking, what secrets are you hiding?
You know he's got good secrets. We actually kind of learned some of them. Yeah, he's really amazing, and so, Can we talk a little bit about that wood scene?
Can I say Hikari real quick? Hikari, he's been really active in the chat. He thinks the cop's on board.
Yeah?
Yeah?
He thinks he's
third
in.
party? I love it.
So maybe he's our guy.
He would be a good one, and he's funny, and he comes from an entirely different perspective of not full, like, of having to balance the law and some possible religious beliefs we're not sure yet. So that would be interesting to see him kind of join the Scooby Gang.
Yeah.
Scooby Gang. I like it. So, all right, so since you brought it up, let's talk about what in all of creation is going on in the woods, because
Third major departure from issue 2. That scene is not in there. Art department went ham, and I have to applaud them. Those raccoons were terrifying.
They were
crucified and, like, arms all spread out, and just so scary. Gutted. Gore. I mean, I love gore, so I was really excited to see it. I was like, there's demonic possession happening in these woods. But also terrifying. And to see kind of Mark and Chief's different opinions on what's going on. I like that they think it's just the kids that spray painted the building. And I'm like...
They're also mutilating animals.
Yeah, I'm like, come on.
It's a huge jump from some kids spray painting the devil on the side of a church crucifying 4 raccoons in the woods. This seems different.
Yeah, that was pretty nuts.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man. And the RV, I'm very confused.
Well, and that's
but intrigued.
Yeah. and that's where I'm at too, because we don't get much more than that. Just the sight of these awful goings on happening out in the woods. And I have no idea what to make of it other than it's telling us very clearly there is more going on. It's bigger than, I was going to say it's bigger than demonic possession. Well, that's large as well. I think that's pretty big.
But it does feel like there's some intention behind it now, instead of just demons have escaped and they're attracted to this dude. Like, it feels directional, especially with the appearance of the man in the black hat. Right after that, it's very.
Is he living in that RV or something?
It feels coincidental that both things should show up at the same time. Is all I'm saying.
Also, did you guys get the vibe that? I mean, the way they shot it, at least, someone was watching them, right? Did you guys not get that vibe with, like, the view from behind the barbed wire fence?
That might be fair. I did not get that, but I could definitely see it.
I get those vibes that they're, like, people are being watched when they show those weird shots, because why else they showed it, like, looking through the barbed wire fence at them kind of exploring and seeing what was going on. So I totally was like, who was watching them?
It definitely did. It seemed like a weird, specific POV thing that they were doing at that point. And then, of course, I start going like, all right, well, which types of horror tropes are we playing with? Is this like a little person that's watching them? Or is it a demon? Or are they going to do like the Evil Dead thing where they've got the demon cam just going to chase them around the woods for a while to save money so we don't have to show that CGI monster? Yeah, I'm not sure. I would say there's almost certainly a connection between whatever's going on out there and scary Brent Spiner. I get the impression, me personally, from watching the way Spiner played it in that one scene where he actually has lines, I think even if he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, as it were, I think he probably is a little too dignified himself. I feel like he wouldn't want to get his hands dirty. I feel like he's the overseer demon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
He
He's
does
like,
have a very prim, proper kind of feel to him.
He very much did.
I feel like he's like the operations manager,
Yeah.
and he delegates. Like he
sure.
has his peons do things like sacrifice raccoons in the woods and whatnot. But yeah, there's got to be a connection, and that's something else too that I think differentiates this from a lot of similar stories. And it's great that we have this is a 10-episode season, I believe. So we've got 10 hours now to play with this mythology, and I think the way they're teasing out little pieces of it is fascinating. And now, of course, so I haven't read the comics. The comics are out there. I want to go and devour all of it now.
See, I'm like the opposite. I don't want to be spoiled. I want to just be kept. Well, I guess it's veering away from the comics already, but I like having kind of this blank slate of not having any idea of where it's going.
I feel like with all Kirkman properties, do one and then the other,
Sure.
and then compare, because it's joyous to just see how he uses the same characters to accomplish different goals, or brings in a character and puts them in entirely new situations. I'm excited to see where he veers off this. So far, all the characters are kind of fulfilling their roles as they traditionally have been in the comic books, but we've got a lot of show left, so I'm looking forward to some twists and turns. If you are interested in getting the comics, the trade paperbacks are available on Amazon.com, or you can go to Comixology and get them for even less expensive and have them on your tablet.
Which is fun. Yeah, I switched over to tablet because like single issues started piling up after a while.
I can't do digital. They are space consuming, but I can't read digital comics. I need paper.
But I do love, because we're taking our time teasing out bigger elements of the mythology, we do get a lot of moments as we build the community and we add color to the community. And there was one I put this in my notes, and the heading is, in quotes, butts. And it's this exchange after the fire and brimstone sermon, where these two where Grace Zabriskie and Melinda McGraw first are talking. No, it's not Melinda McGraw, it's some other parishioner. They come up to the Reverend, and one of them says, "I could have done without some of that saucy language, putting people's backsides in seats." And then the Reverend says, "Maybe it's a minor blessing there weren't more people here to hear me working blue." And I love things like that. And I love that he uses the term "working blue," which if you're listening and you don't know what that term is, in stand-up comedy, working blue tends to refer to material that is very vulgar. I love that the church version of working blue is something as innocuous as the term putting butts in seats.
Yeah.
Like that little piece of color really, I don't know, that amused me.
Yeah, and even the following line, I think is, I like it when you put a little pepper on your peaches.
Pepper on your peaches, yeah.
Like that is just, and again, just invoking that like Virginia spirit. Like it's a little old South, little good old boy kind of feel to it. More euphemisms than actual like dirty language. I really like the way this town is kind of unfolding to us, and especially once we get to a point where the show surpasses the comic. I think we'll have a lot of secondary characters to play around with that we don't kind of see too much in the comic. That'll be really exciting.
Yeah, so the comic's been running since 2014. We talked about it super briefly before we jumped on air. So how far in, because are you current with them?
Yes. I actually don't know how many off the top of my head. I'm going back slowly and rereading them. I want to say there are like 15 out. Feel free to check me if I'm wrong.
So if there's only 15 issues and this season is only 10 episodes long, it's entirely possible, if we are lucky enough to get another season of this show, we're going to run into a George R.R. Martin Game of Thrones situation where pretty soon
Tumble straight past it.
We're just going to be making stuff up. That's exciting.
That's really exciting. And it'll be interesting. Once again, I don't know, since Kirkman is in charge of both the TV show and the comic, and has active voice in it, I'm wondering is he going to go a different direction with the show as the comic? And I have so many questions. I'm going to find him and bring him to us. That's my goal.
That'd be great.
I'm going to find him.
Sure. Just find Robert Kirkman.
Find him.
Come hang out with me.
If you wander around, you look under rocks and things for where he might be. But it's also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he did write the pilot, and that's the first pilot he's written, which I think is interesting that and obviously he was very much involved in shaping what Walking Dead is, because obviously it's his baby.
Yeah.
But it was the first time that he wrote a pilot, which I think is interesting. He was able to put very directly his own stamp as a writer on the show from the very beginning.
Yeah, and in the comics, I want to say between issues 3 and 5, he writes a letter to the fans saying, like, we're pretty sure it's going to be a TV show. Settle in, buckle up. I'll read it to you when we get to that that issue that corresponds with the show. It's a really great letter, and it was really exciting to read, and it's clear that he's so jazzed about bringing this to the screen and being able to open up this world. So his energy and just like love of his world is so infectious. You can't help but like want to dive right in.
Yeah. I was like, your joy about Robert Kirkman was getting pretty infectious, and I got sucked in for a second. I was
like smiling, like
I was like, please tell me more about Robert Kirkman.
I'll try next week. History lessons of Robert Kirkman.
I love hearing that too, and it makes me way more interested in his work because this is the first experience I'm having with him at all because I didn't ever watch Walking Dead. So I love hearing you talk. I'm like, yeah, I'm all on board.
Update on the comics. We have 19 issues of the comic. There are 3 trade paperbacks out, which run anywhere between $5 and $12. So it's not expensive to catch up and read if you're interested in doing that. It's a super fun read, and once again, just gorgeous to look at. So pretty.
Yeah.
I love good art.
So if we're only at about 15, and you said that we're approximately getting an adaptation of 1 issue per episode, is that about the way it's been working?
Yeah, roughly. So far. Again, only 2 issues in. Issue 1 was direct pilot, like first issue, to complete the same. Issue 2, we get a lot more. We don't have the wood scene. There's a conflict in issue 2 between Mark and Kyle that we don't get in the episode that is in the book.
Although Mark certainly seems to be no big fan of Kyle.
He doesn't hide that at all.
And I can't imagine that conflict won't be coming up soon. It would be very early to introduce it into a TV show. But once again, the comic is like, this is Kyle's journey. These are the people Kyle interacts with, for the most part, except for the man in the black hat.
Right.
Whereas the show, again, seems more like about this community and what's going to be happening now that Kyle is back. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So far, though, yeah, right on track. It's just issue per episode.
So what that means then is, okay, so 10 episode seasons, right? If it gets a second season, probably another 10 episodes. By then, another couple of issues will be out. I think we're good. We're safe for like 2 years.
Yeah, roughly. It'll depend if he keeps up his comic schedule, because I think that's kind of what I think he does 6 months on, 6 months off.
Okay.
So we'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, maybe for the first few years we'll be right in there.
Yeah. Now I'm just trying to think of like what else from this episode have we not hit, because we have hit a lot of I really quick though do want to shout out David Denman as Mark, because he hasn't had a ton to do yet. But that's just another actor that I've seen in so many. He was Roy on The Office, among many other things. And so it's like, hey Roy, why are you so mad?
Lighten up, Roy. Come on.
I thought it was kind of interesting the way that Megan and Allison have their little interaction, and you kind of hear about what Amber thinks of the whole not getting to see her dad thing.
Yes.
I thought that was pretty interesting because she made it seem like Amber kind of blames her mom for not getting to see her dad, which I didn't really. I'm really curious about that whole situation and what went on to how I know everyone thinks that he hurt her, but I'm kind of curious to the exact events that led to him being not allowed even to interact at all whatsoever.
It seemed to me, based off the language, that it was a mutual agreement and that maybe there haven't been cops involved. Just based off the way Allison and the sister were talking, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on it, but a lot of those are based off the comics, and I don't want to potentially spoil anything. But once again, I'm trying to...
Hikari, I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong. She actually said that maybe the reason he's blamed for harming his daughter is because when the mom snapped out of it, she didn't remember anything, and the only 2 that were seriously hurt were those 2.
Huh.
This makes sense.
It does. It also tracks as to why Amber would maybe resent her mother a little bit, because from her perspective, assuming that Amber doesn't know anything about the evil demons and isn't secretly possessed,
she knows
that her experience with the situation would have been, something's wrong with mom, mom's being violent, dad's trying to protect me.
Exactly.
Why can't I see dad anymore?
So that makes sense to why, I mean, that's a very good, I thought that was a good theory that she had.
Totally.
Yeah, so, all right, since we're starting to speculate a little bit, why don't we open it up and get into predictions?
Yeah.
Okay. Love predictions.
And now,
I love the light show.
Your
AFTERBUZZ
Every
so
time.
good.
Because pretty much anything else I can think of really wanting to talk about right now necessitates a lot of wild speculation.
Oh man, bring it.
I love that.
Well,
Let's hear it.
okay, so, and some of it maybe the comics have already answered.
I
and
won't
we
answer that here.
Right, so we can't get super spoily. But like, what's up with the weird CGI goo monster? What's that guy's deal? He seems mean. I don't like that guy.
I like how you're referring to him as a guy.
I was gonna say, is it a he? Is it conscious
Is it
or?
it? I don't know.
I'm gonna say he because the goo monster just seems like a real angry dude to me. Like so far, as depicted, weird CGI goo monster seems like a really angry dude.
I can see that. Sure.
That's my
I
prediction.
can get on board with that.
He maybe is angry because he got laid off from his demon job. Maybe like Black Hat Brent Spiner is he's like cutting his ranks. He's like, look, we're on a budget. It's like nobody is recession proof at this point, not even pure evil. We've got to let you go. And then big demon goo monster is like, fine, and then starts possessing people. I don't know who's evil. I think everyone is evil. That's
At this point, you have to kind of assume the worst of everyone. That everyone could be evil, just hoping that they're not.
And since we're talking predictions now fully, we talked about Chief, Reggie Cathy's character, and I really like the idea that yes, he seems open to, if not totally sure of the fact that there is some weird supernatural evil stuff that goes on in this town.
It seems like the older citizens in particular have kind of this knowledge of demon possession-y things running throughout the town.
My fear is not that he won't become an ally, because I think he certainly can be. My fear is that he does and is immediately killed horribly.
I can see that. And this is just a side note because this is hysterical. The gooey thing that you're saying, Flubber's evil cousin. Flubber's evil cousin. That's Akari again. She is coming in hot in this chat, and it's great.
Did we check the IMDb? It could be the same weird CGI goo blob that played Flubber.
I think it's the same. Cast the same.
It's good to see that CGI goo blob working again.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like that's a small market. It's a very niche market for actors.
He came out of retirement for this role. He couldn't pass up the opportunity.
Like, but I do every so often. I'll see like on Actors Access. I'll see a breakdown that's like only submit if you are a massive sentient CGI goo blob. And I was like, darn, that's not me. But where's that actor from Flubber? I bet that. Oh man.
So great.
But that's what I think is going to happen to Chief. I think Chief is, because Chief's eyes are open in a way that everyone else's aren't, and he doesn't overtly seem evil to me, I'm pretty sure it means he's not long for this world.
I agree. I feel bad things are coming for him. And another thing that I just think is these absolute straight out skeptics like Mark, I think that something or someone close to them is going to be immediate. For Mark, since he's very openly not a believer of this, I think something like his daughter, could become possessed, or Megan, and that's going to kind of snap him into, okay, something bad's going down here.
Sure.
I don't know. I just assume that's it for them to believe that it's going to have to happen directly to them and affect them.
For sure.
I'll make a wild, off-the-cuff, not in the comics prediction. I think the kids are going to come bigger into play. We've kind of set up this world where children have this weird outlier effect on people, from the kids that are spray painting to both daughters. And I'm wondering if maybe they are a little more intuitive as to like these demons, and if they're aware of the possession. Because even in episode 1 with Mark's daughter, she says, oh, you were bad and you hurt your daughter, but to me it didn't seem accusatory. It seemed like she was just restating facts and trying to understand the situation. So I'm wondering if she's like more aware than maybe even her parents of like, there's something going on here and it's weird. So I think the kids are going to play a bigger factor.
I like that, especially because we know it's very clear in the pilot episode they're not going to shy away from bringing children into this for better or for
That's
worse.
Why I like it.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
And I'm the same way, and it's it feels a little bit sick, but every time something happens to a kid in a horror movie, my response should be, that's just terrible. But really,
like,
my response is, they went there. That's awesome.
Yeah, punch that kid in the face.
Exactly.
It was crazy awesome.
Let's not forget that the pilot opens with a little boy gnawing off his own fingers, and then later they punch that same little boy in the face repeatedly.
He smacks his head into a wall to kill a bug and then self-cannibalizes. I mean, that's just metal. Like, I was just really, I was like, this is brutal and everything I needed in my life.
Yep. I was a fan of it.
So that means that, yes, not even the children on Outcast are in any way safe.
They're all so cute though, so you hope they're safe.
I know.
They're
See,
not,
that makes me feel so insecure. No, I'm like, there's no safety here. In a lot of horror stories, you can go, okay, the child is here. I can at least watch the kid on screen, and everything's gonna work out. Deep breaths. Oh, the kid is eating its own fingers. Oh, okay.
Like potato chips.
I also get extremely nervous when there's no background music or anything.
Because you're waiting for
I'm waiting for a noise or something just terrible
anything to ground
happen.
you within the space, but when you're just floating, you're like,
it's like
they could come from anywhere.
It's almost like they want you to feel calm in the silence, but I've never felt more uneasy.
Great show.
It's awful.
Dude, but they're doing such a wonderful job
With everything.
as storytellers and also as technical filmmakers. Which again, I'm a huge film nerd. To see the level of technical craftsmanship on display in these first 2 episodes for me was really, really fun and exciting.
Yeah. I'm not like super like good at what exactly they're doing, but I notice it, like the way they change the lighting with certain things and the visual effects, everything is just incredible.
It's beautiful.
So we're going to have to wrap in a second, but really quickly wanted to get any final thoughts, anything we didn't hit on that you guys wanted to just throw into the conversation really quickly about this episode in particular.
No, I think we got it. Thank you guys for chatting with us. Join us next week if you missed it this week on YouTube, 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, because we love hearing from you guys.
Yeah, it's good. And I have one more thing that popped up in the chat that I thought was pretty interesting by Adam. He's like, I've not read the comics, but love the show. Do you think that Kyle had the demon inside him at some point, but managed to cast it out, and that's why they call him Outcast?
Good theories,
I don't
Adam.
know,
Good
but
theories.
that was interesting.
I'm gonna come back next week
think on
having
it.
thought about this.
Think on it.
In the meantime, where can everybody find you guys online?
I'm Joelle Monique. You can find me everywhere at Joelle Monique. And this week on Black Girl Nerds, catch my review of Finding Dory.
And I am Abby Vega. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at _Abby Vega.
And I am Lex Michael, all over social media at the Lex Michael. Thank you very much for chatting with us. Please continue to join us all season for the Outcast After Show. We're going to keep talking about bad things happening to nice people. We will see you next week.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.